Now, I think we have a little time still in the session, so we can have a little discussion as well. I think you mentioned, this adjacency where a lot of innovation, entrepreneurship, and so on is spilling out from the various space research programs. And I think we could see very clearly on the engineering materials side and certainly information technology. Would you like to elaborate on, how this entrepreneurial sector works with ISRO and how that relationship is established? I'm a BITS Pilani alumnus, and we are very proud of our young Awais, Ahmed, and Pixel, and so I know that there are many, many startups that are working with you. So it would be interesting for the young people to hear about that, right?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. Currently, we have at least 100 startups registered for support from in the space sector alone. So what we do with them is we look at their demand profile. We need to help them to curate their activities in various domains, especially how to handhold them in the technical side, how to handhold them with regard to identifying those funding agencies, build up a company that you can sustain on various resources. It is a very complex problem. Building a company is not an easy thing. Just to have one technology alone won't build finally a company. So we need to have a little bit of business intelligence aspects and how you want to take it further and scale up. At what time that you need to scale up when the maturity of the technology happens, and how to bring in talents into the company. All these are really challenges that a startup company definitely faces. So what we need to do is to bring in professionals to help them. So some of the activity that we have taken up is to connect with the people who have an ability to help them to curate their business verticals. And we have done this activity in looking at some of the people who are already there in the domain. And ISRO and InSpace has done this connection with those people. And also to give them the training related to the financial intelligence what are required to run such companies. We also have MOUs with such organizations who do the financial structuring of such companies. So we like to give the support in terms of the end-to-end capability of technology, building teams, looking at facilities, providing facilities of whatever we have today, create the business knowledge and capability, ability to scale up at appropriate time. So the entire process of building startup company is something that we need to work with them. Of course, as a company, they have their own mind and brilliance to do that. But I can only say you that in space at ISRO, we are very keen to look at the end-to-end capability building. And 100 such companies are already there. Startup companies are there. Individuals are there. And I can tell you out of this 100, a significant portion of them have the potential to grow to a big company when they really scale up. So this is really a very interesting thing to see. And if you look at the sectors in which they are working, at least 3 to 4 of them are into the rocket building, designing systems for rockets. At least 10 of them are into building satellites and satellite-related high-end products. And rest of them are into building some technologies for the entire sector or into the applications domain or downstream sectors or also into the ground infrastructure related to space. So this is the type of distribution that is there. And probably you may know that if you look at the risk versus the possibility of converting it into the ideas into business, it is least at the downstream work, especially in the application domain. But it is little higher into the sectors like satellites, and it is highest in the rocket building sector. So startups do realize this threat because scaling up from an idea to a product that will produce profit, it is much more better in the downstream. And it's equally important to understand that the economy of space sector is driven by the downstream application segment. And I will urge all of you to look at how we can create more companies in the application sector. Then only the other sectors in the upstream will really grow. Because once you have more applications, there will be demand for more satellites, and the increase in demand for satellites will actually create more demand for rockets. So this is very important to understand and work in those sectors. And if you look at the Indian youngsters, I think their ability in IT, electronics, programming, software, they have a real good future, especially in terms of the business intelligence creation, supporting companies, etc., use the space-based services is something very phenomenally there and still not explored. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that comprehensive view of entrepreneurship coming out of the space sector. I know that you didn't really have time to go into details of some of the futuristic areas of space research. But since I'm the chair of the bio track, I think I will like to ask one question on space biology. And, is ISRO actually looking at this? Because we know that we can find, Jet Propulsion Labs and Caltech have already, started doing some interesting analysis of microbials that you can trap in space sky labs and so on. Is this a direction that I think the Indian Institute of Science has been talking to you about this? So yeah, please.
So in the space biology sector, there are at least 2 laboratories in ISRO currently working. One of them is a physical research laboratory at Ahmedabad. They have scientists working in the formation of molecules, complex molecules, by the process of high impact shock or asteroid impact, such a phenomena, whether it actually triggered formation of complex molecules which have an ability to reproduce. This is one area, domain of research which is currently going on. And they have created the laboratory setup to do this study. And they have also successfully created randomly configured biomolecules to become orderly structures through the impact of the shock. And this is a very important research outcome came out of them. Similarly, we are also looking at the astrobiology in terms of sampling of the atmosphere and studying the presence of biological molecules of complex nature coming out of the space traveling through the space and still surviving. These studies are also done. Considering the work we are doing in the human space flight area, the bioastronautics becomes very, very important area. Looking at the microbial growth in space vehicles, how you deal with the human beings when you go for long duration space travel, etc. We are trying to develop those capabilities in India through tying up with the laboratories that are already working in, for example, Indian Institute of Science.
That's right. So thank you very much. I think we are approaching the time for the switch over to the next session. So, like to thank you again for taking the time and coming and addressing the Tech Summit, and for the very, very interesting new directions, and we wish ISRO and the space program absolutely great success going forward. And so thank you, sir, for being here.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you.